welcome back. So here's a question for you. What happens when a teacher retires? What does the teacher do? Right, of course. Well, today we have a teacher who actually started writing a little way back, but now focuses on writing. My name is Dacquino. Her name is Linda Griffin.
Hello.
Hello. Linda, talk to me about your writing. You were a teacher for many years, and then you wrote a book about parenting. Tell me a little bit about what you do and who you are. Who is Linda Griffin?
Well, I have to really begin way back in college.
Okay.
Because I went to a college that had a profound effect on me.
Oh.
I went to Mills College of Education, where I specialized in early childhood education.
Oh, wow.
And it was a small, very progressive college. And I still remember some of the courses. That's how,
Wow.
it really hit me. So one, for example, was observing and recording the behavior of young children. And to this day, if I'm at a mall, I'm in a restaurant, I watch parent-child interaction all the time.
And it's fascinating.
It is fascinating how parents respond to their children.
Yes.
So, and then there was another class that that was so interesting to me. We actually watched a film of a woman giving birth.
Whoa.
And then we virtually raised that child. So we researched, and we discussed every parenting problem you can possibly imagine.
And there's a lot of them.
And we debated it.
Yeah, wow.
It was fascinating, and it really worked well as a parent. I love that.
Well, not to jump the gun at all, but one of your books is so fascinating to me, and that's Demetrius Says No. Man, kids at a certain age are like, no. And they just, they mean it. You know, you want to feed them? No. I mean, I had so many techniques for feeding my child, and the answer was no. You know, and you're like, you have to eat. And their answer is no. So what do you do when the child refuses to do what you tell them to do?
Oh, that is a big question.
Yeah.
Because it really depends upon the age of the child. And what the situation is.
Yes.
And what's happening.
Sometimes it's
so
not as
really,
simple as eating.
It's not as simple as eating. And as far as I'm concerned with eating, it's really best to let a child alone with that.
Yeah. And
Just leave them alone.
the child seems to know why he's saying no, or she.
Right. And the more you make of it, the worse the situation becomes, particularly with eating.
Yeah, because it makes them rebellious, right?
It really does. So what happened after I went to college, of course I taught for 34 years.
Wow.
And while I was teaching, I went to graduate school. And I studied counseling. And as part of my counseling degree, I did an internship at a parent and child program. It was a very sobering experience because all of the families that were at this particular program were at risk for having their children taken away from them.
Wow.
But I really started to believe that parenting is a skill that can be learned.
Yeah.
And so this carried with me for a long time.
Don'ts.
There really are do's and don'ts. Or let's put it this way, there are things that work better than others.
Yes, yes.
So I did that, and as luck would have it, I was asked to write articles for a local parenting magazine. And I did that for a number of years.
Wow.
And this is important because it was because of that I started getting the book together, My Child Won't Listen, which I'll show you in a minute. So what happened, I was asked to do this, I was asked to write, and some days I would come home and there would be a message on my answering machine from people who read an article with a comment. So this one particular day, I clicked on my answering machine and a woman said, I just read your article, Bonding versus Crazy Glue, and I made copies of it and I sent it to all friends and family.
Wow.
Because I'm telling this because at that moment I decided when I was retired, I was going to do something with all the articles I wrote and put them into a book.
That's a good idea.
And that's what I did.
So what is the crux of that article?
Bonding versus crazy
Yeah.
glue? Well, bonding is a special relationship between a parent and child, and every parent wants to bond with their children. Using crazy glue is when you don't allow a child to gain a sense of autonomy and become independent.
Yeah.
And I can just, I'm going to
So
just.
the parents' answers are the only answers. That's wrong.
I'm sorry.
That the parents' answers for the child aren't always the best thing. The child has to learn to find his own answers.
Well, not just own answers, but I'll give you an example. If I had a child in my class whose parent always wiped their bottom for them. So what happens? A child comes to school and is terrified to go to the bathroom alone.
Because there's no,
Very
there's no one to
fearful.
wipe his own bottom.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. There's certain things that parents do that keep children babies. They don't allow their child to grow up.
Now, your book here, My Child Won't Listen, this is your book on parenting.
Yes, it is.
And this book basically covers some of those things about what you do. You know, again, I've had many revelations as a teacher.
Yes.
And one of them was that a teacher's job isn't to teach answers, it's to teach how to question. And a teacher has to help children to create their own questions and then find the answers to those questions. That's what you really need to do to make children lifelong learners, not simply the recipient of your knowledge.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
and that's really what it's about. So tell me about some of the revelations in this book.
Well, I just want to give you some other examples of some of the bonding issues.
Oh, good.
All right. A parent said to me, "She won't go to sleep unless she's in our bed." That was a parent of a 2-year-old. Or this was another one. "Take the diaper off him and put on training pants. You've got to be kidding." That was a parent of a child who was 3 years old but not yet toilet trained. "She won't get enough milk if I don't give her the bottle." Parent of a 3-year-old. And these are actual things that parents have said to me. "He won't eat his pancakes unless I cut them up for him." And that was parent of a 7-year-old.
Oof.
And as you can imagine, what often happens with these children, they become fearful.
Yeah.
They become very dependent,
Very
and
dependent,
they
yeah.
exhibit immature behavior, which causes a great deal of problems for them.
Yeah, that you have to actually cut the ties.
Yes, you do. And so parents at that point really need to ask themselves, who's being benefited by what I'm doing?
One
There's
of
a
the
whole list
complaints,
questions.
now that I am a little older than I used to be, my friends complain about the fact that their 50-year-old is still living with them.
It's a whole other thing.
They've never gone, and it's hard. And it's understandable that it's a tough world out there. And it's hard to break away and to get out there. And sometimes it's a necessity.
Right.
And sometimes you need to help. But
That's correct.
sometimes helping hurts because it doesn't teach independence.
Yes.
So there has to be a line. There has to be a point where you say, "I got to throw you out of the nest, man, or you'll never learn to fly."
It's true. It's true.
And that's important.
Very important.
But then on the other hand, as a parent, you're afraid that when you throw them out of the nest, they're going to hit the ground. So what do? And what do you do?
It's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
At what point do you say, "Look, I'm just going to cut up the pancakes, man. It's so much easier. The kid's not eating. How much work is it to cut up the pancake?" But it's not about cutting up the pancake.
No. It's true.
Yeah.
I had an extreme example, just to give you an extreme example. I had a little boy when I was teaching kindergarten, and he exhibited very infantile behavior. He always took on the role as baby, no matter when the children were playing.
Oh, wow.
And he was afraid to do almost anything in class.
Yeah.
I spoke with his parents, and this little boy was still sleeping in a crib and still drinking from a bottle.
Oh, geez.
And so you wonder why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the reason.
And it's hard to let go. I mean, I remember
Very difficult.
working with teachers in the teacher's room and having these teachers talk about their children the entire period. And just they won't let go, and they keep talking. Jason did this, and Jason did that, and Jason did this, and it's like, yo, Jason ever leave the house? And it does, and it becomes an obsession.
Sure.
And they live through their children, and that could
tough.
be dangerous.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. So you wrote this book. Now tell me about Demetrio's book here. Demetrio says no. When do you teach Demetrio to say yes? When do you force him to say yes? Do you force him to say yes?
Well, that's why this is an important book.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because it's actually happening. I would say that it happens every year. There's a child who doesn't want to take off their jacket. There's a
Yeah.
child who doesn't want to take off their hat. Why? Because they've had a haircut they hate.
Yeah, yeah.
Children won't come in the room because they're wearing new glasses that are ugly, or they just got glasses.
So generally, it isn't always just rebellion. It's because there's a reason.
And that's what's so important. You want to you want to make children feel that that their opinion is important and that you validate their feelings. That's important.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in this case. Demetrio came to school. He refused to take off his jacket. He would not take off his jacket.
Wow.
And the teacher, and that was me, did not force him to take off his jacket. I respected his feelings.
Put it up for the audience to see. There you go. So he refused to take the jacket off.
He refused to take his jacket off. And he really sat all day with his jacket on.
Wow.
And this story...
And you didn't force him to take it
Absolutely
off?
not.
Okay, there it is up there. There he is with his jacket on. So you didn't force him.
No.
Did he eventually take it off?
No.
No.
No,
So
he left his jacket on all day.
Wow.
And
Okay.
this is a story which says that's okay. It's okay to do that. And
Really?
why didn't he take off his jacket? It turns out he hated what he was wearing under it.
Yeah.
His mother made him wear something that he hated.
Did he hate it? Yep. So
At
there was
the
a
end,
reason.
and the story. It's interesting that this story I wrote 38 years ago.
Wow.
And what
And
happened?
it's still real today.
Well, it's very, very real today. And what was interesting, I just kind of put it aside and let it be, and just recently, resurrected it. And I changed some things around, and I knew from speaking to publishers prior to this, I needed to have a twist to it. And I'm not going to tell you what the twist is, but there is a twist at the
sure.
end.
Now we have to buy the book.
But there's a twist at the end
Yeah.
of the book.
Okay.
So, yeah, but this is something that happens very frequently with
Yeah.
children.
Now, in your parenting book, what would you say was the real gem?
Well, the whole purpose of the book is to help help parents
Parents.
understand to help parents understand how to discipline children.
Yeah.
And what does discipline mean? The real purpose of discipline is to help children learn the right thing to do.
A student taught me the most important thing about discipline. This was a child who was thrown out of school, and he was going to be home tutored. So they asked me to home tutor him. And he was a problem child. 8th grade. He was pretty much tossed out of his classes, and I went there to teach him. Well, he was filled with expletives, and he was using language that was off the wall. He was challenging me at every turn. And I said, Dan, what's the problem, buddy? What's going on? And he said, I hate teachers. And I said, all teachers? So you hate me too? I didn't do anything. He said, no, I don't hate all teachers. He says, there's mean teachers and there's strict teachers. I don't mind strict teachers because they make me follow the rules. But mean teachers do things just because they want to do them, not because they're good for you. It was an awakening. And I understood
comment.
exactly. He didn't mind following the rules, but if the teacher broke the rules, that was wrong. So,
that's
so
great.
I understood it, and I understood where he was coming from. And then from that point on, I was able to work with the kid. Every time I told him to do something, I told him why.
Oh.
And then he got it.
That's
as
wonderful.
long as he knew why I was doing it, and that I wasn't just doing it because it's my job,
Well, because
whether
you
it was
could.
good or not,
Right.
he got it. So
Wow.
sometimes we do have to understand
Absolutely. Understand.
that rebellion sometimes comes from another revelation. We try sometimes to understand a world where things don't always make sense. There are some things out there that really don't make sense. Why do babies die? Why do we kill people in war, and yet we can't kill them in the streets? When is right right and wrong wrong?
Profound questions.
They're very
Difficult
profound
questions.
questions. And you get a rational kid who's living in an irrational world, and it's confusing. He doesn't get it. Why do some people commit a crime and spend 25 years in jail, and another person gets a slap on the wrist? Same crime.
Lots of unfairness.
Yes, and
There's the-
fairness is key. And a lot of these kids grow up where, sure, my sister gets everything and I get nothing. And that's not fair. The teacher tells me to do this, but he lets her get away with it. That's not fair. Guess what? The world isn't fair often. Often. And is it confusing for a child? Absolutely it is. And for me, one of the things that I see is most difficult for kids in growing is the fact that sometimes things are not consistent. What's okay today is not okay tomorrow.
Well, that's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
That makes for a lot of confusion.
It does. Years ago when I was growing up, a kid who was caught with a marijuana cigarette could go to jail for 5 years. Now in some states it's legal. So that person who spent 5 years in jail, was that fair? Well, no, times change. Yeah, I know. But is it confusing for kids when things change? 1 minute they're okay and next minute they're not. For one person it's okay and for another person it's not. No, it's confusing. So we need parents to understand that too. The same way, the fact that children don't exist in only one domain. That what's right in school is not always necessarily wrong at home is confusing.
Sure.
And when the two of them don't agree, it's a problem.
It's definitely a problem.
It's a real problem. So sometimes kids grow up in limbo, not knowing
Tough.
when to rebel and when not to rebel.
It's difficult.
When is wrong wrong and when is right right.
I have a very cute story to tell you
good.
about. This is one of my favorite stories from
Okay.
school. I had a little boy, and this is in first grade. He was a lovely child in every way. He was very, very sweet. And he came into school. He was so excited. His mother just gave birth to a baby, and now he was a big brother. And he told us about the baby's hair color and how much the baby weighed, and he was just bursting with excitement. And so I had the class make a big poster for him to bring home to his baby brother, and everyone decorated it with all different kinds of colors and toys and whatever. And I put it in a big bow, and he had this gigantic thing to take home, and he was overjoyed. And every day that week, Johnny came to school giving us an update about his baby brother. The end of the week comes, and I'm dismissing the class, and Johnny's mother is there. Now, you have to understand that generally, he always took the bus home, so I never saw her. I really never
Right.
saw her. And she said to me, "Miss Griffin, I have to talk to you. Can I talk to you? I have to talk to you immediately." I said, "Sure, come. I'll come into the classroom." And we sit down, and she said, "I never had a baby. I never gave birth.
Oh my God.
I never gave birth. And I've been getting cards from all the parents in class
Oh,
congratulating me."
my God.
And she said, "I am so embarrassed. I am so embarrassed."
Oh my God. That
So
it blew my mind just now. That would have really blown
Says-
my mind.
she said, "What do I do about it? What do I do about this? What do I do with Johnny? What do I do with everyone who's coming to say congratulations to me?" So what happened was that Johnny's aunt had given birth to a little boy. And then Johnny went up to his parents and said, I want to have a baby brother too. And they said, no, you can't.
Yeah.
And so he pretended to have a baby brother.
Wow.
Right? He pretended. And we talked about it, and I said it's important not to tell him that he lied, not to make a big thing of this,
Yeah.
but that that he really wants a baby brother, and you
Yeah.
understand that. And he pretended to have a baby brother, and he needs to tell everyone that he doesn't really have a baby brother,
But he
he
wished he-
pretended. But he wished he did.
He wished he did.
He wished he did, and he pretended to. And she felt much better. The mother felt much better
Yeah.
when she had that to say to him and to say to everyone, yeah, he pretended.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened, and it all worked out just fine. But I'll never forget it because it was.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Oh, what a shock that had to be
I was
for
so
you.
surprised.
Like, oh, my God.
And she was so embarrassed by the whole thing.
oh, yeah.
Because she
Yeah.
got all these cards.
Yeah.
So children can do interesting things.
One thing I learned about parenting ain't easy.
It's not easy.
Good Lord.
It's very
I raised a
difficult.
boy and a girl. My daughter had a boy and a girl. And grandparenting is no easier than parenting. In some ways, much more difficult because you don't have full control.
That's right.
It's not your decision. And you see the mistakes, and you have to do both. You have to parent the parent and and be your grandparent.
right.
It's very difficult
It is.
because you it's just now it's two layers, and it's very difficult.
And I address that in the book.
Oh, you do?
There's a chapter for grandparents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're very simple. They're very quick reading because remember these were articles. These were articles for a magazine, so they're very fast reading, but they get right to the point.
Yeah, I want to put my hands around the throat of all those people when I was younger who said to me, grandparenting is the easiest thing in the world. Spoil the kid to death. That's all. That's your job. Unconditional love. Well, yes and no.
It can get tricky,
It can get tricky, and there's times when you can't give unconditional love.
and particularly if you have different ideas of parenting than your grown children do.
Yeah,
It gets very difficult.
It is, and it's a different world.
Yes.
Some of the things that worked very well in my generation
Sure.
don't work in this generation.
Sure, it's true.
You know, I think of Mrs. Reagan, who said, "Just say no." Oh, not that easy. Sometimes that doesn't work. So there are some do's and don'ts, and you certainly explore them. But you wrote another book about
did.
adopting a dog. Talk to
did.
me about
Yes, I
that.
did. Well, Ginger is my granddog.
Ginger.
Ginger's my granddog, and she was adopted by my daughter and son-in-law at the SPCA in Briarcliff. And they brought her home, and she was so frightened. She wouldn't walk up the stairs. She wouldn't eat. And I had to write this book because the transformation was so wonderful and so heartwarming to see.
Oh, wow.
It was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love animals.
Oh, me too.
And of course, I love children. So this combined my love of both.
Yeah.
Which was
yeah.
just
My
great.
daughter has a dog that literally tries to jump through the window when I visit. She's all the way up in Lake George, so I don't get to see her
Right.
often. Often enough, maybe once a month. And when I get there, the dog goes nuts. And it's such a great feeling that they do remember and they do respond to
they
love.
do.
And
They
this dog was in my backyard chasing a squirrel. I said, Layla! That poor dog stopped in midair, rolled and stopped and came running back to me with her head down. I was like, oh my God, if my kids could only behave that way. But unbelievable, appreciative, and understanding. So, Linda, is it about love?
The book is about love and compassion and cooperation.
Yeah.
This is a family that really had to cooperate to help this dog. And that's what happened. And the
Yeah.
dog turned around. I had one thing that, just to show you how frightened Ginger was, I took care of Ginger during the day when my daughter and son were at work. And I took Ginger for a walk. It was a bitter cold day. And there was a big hedge. and Ginger went through that hedge. So I'm on one side of the hedge, Ginger's on the other side of the hedge, and I couldn't walk around. The hedge was too long.
Wow.
And Ginger would not respond to food.
Oh boy.
And I'm trying to coax the dog out any way I could. And she just wouldn't budge. I thought, well, we're both going to freeze to death. Eventually she came out. She came out from the hedge. But she posed a great deal of difficulty when they first got her. You know, the important part of the book, what I wanted to tell people is that it's important first to talk as a family about what it means to have a dog and all the responsibilities that go with it, because there are many.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And who's going to do what? And can you afford it? Having a dog is very expensive.
Oh yeah, it is.
With vet bills and what's going to happen when you go away, and do you have someone to watch the dog and so on.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happened with Ginger is that my daughter and son-in-law, of course, just fell in love totally with the dog. And they were just committed to her, very committed.
Yeah.
And you need time. You have to say, I'm going to adopt a dog, that I am going to give the dog time. Yep. And she is the best dog you possibly have. She's so wonderful.
You know what I learned most about rescue dogs? That there's also such a thing as rescue children.
Oh. Mm.
That sometimes we have to see through the eyes of our heart as well as the eyes of our head, and to understand that certain people need certain things. And life is not easy. Raising children is not easy.
Right.
Linda, you have 2 minutes to say what you need to say to these people.
Oh my goodness. All right. If you are thinking of retiring, or you are retired and you feel, I just don't have anything to do, what am I going to do with my time? My suggestion, write a book. It will keep you busy as you can possibly want to be.
And the things you have to say are things that some people absolutely need to hear.
That's so true.
So
that's so true.
If you have something to say, say it. It's important to say what you need to say.
Right.
And it's important to get it out for yourself and for others who will hear it. Linda, it has been our pleasure. You've said some wonderful things that we can take to the board. Keep doing what you're doing. Write some more books. And be the person you need to be.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure to have you here with us.